Hello, folks. My name is Joseph Sulistyo, Senior Vice President of Marketing at Blaize. Welcome to Life on the Edge podcast. I have two distinguished guests for me today. I'll let them introduce themselves. Please go ahead.
Well, I guess since I'm the newest to the organization, I should probably start. So thank you, Joseph. My name is Stephen Patak, and I am just about 30 days into being our new Chief Revenue Officer here at Blaize. I've spent 25 plus years in the technology industry, all different types of domains, big companies, medium companies, startups, across networking and hardware and software and data. And, when I had the opportunity to come join this company, it's pretty obvious to know the area that we play and how exciting the space is. So to be able to come and lead our sales and go-to-market effort and find our path in this market so we can truly bring benefit and impact to our customers and partners, Joseph, I said, man, I want to be part of that. So I am drinking from the fire hose. I am learning all types of things, but it's been a really great first month, and happy to be here talking to you and Keith today.
That's excellent, Stephen. Again, welcome to Blaize. Happy to have you here, and excited actually for us to work in working collaboration. And then we have another guest with us today.
I'm Keith Barto. I'm head of solutions marketing, working very closely with Joseph and the marketing team, and of course, Stephen and the Blaize sales organization, building new and exciting solutions around video analytics and of course, several of the other topics we will talk about today.
Stephen, you started a little bit about the kind of where you were before. Give us kind of in the last 5 to 10 years, basically your journey and background and so forth.
First off, I'm gonna first tell you I'm born and raised in Texas, and I'm both a Texas Longhorn and Dallas Cowboy fan. And that does sometimes really good things, and also it's been a lot of years of some really bad things, but I'm trying to stay loyal to my teams. I started with one of the market share leaders from a networking perspective and spent the first 15 years of my career at Cisco Systems. And I think that's really where I learned a lot about what I know about sales and sales leadership, but more importantly, what I've learned about listening to customers during market transitions and try to help them figure out this journey. And I got to tell you, there's probably no more complex journey than what we're in right now. I mean, all of us, no matter how much we think that we know, every day you learn something new. And that's a lot of stress and anguish on clients trying to navigate this. From there, I worked for all kinds of companies, big and small, challengers in the similar space. I went over to geospatial and data, and about 6 or 7 years ago, decided I want to really go into the early stage startup business and really build something. And the reason why for me was in these markets that are dominated by many established players, there's a lot of companies out there innovating in a way that bring incredible value to a group of customers out there that might not be aware of how you can approach something a little bit differently. And I saw that in my last two companies, one in the networking space, one in the critical infrastructure space. And so when I started looking into Blaize, I saw it very similar. We all know the big players in the market, and we all know what they do really well. But we also know that there's different types of customers out there looking for different things. And what I saw from Blaize and our approach and what we bring from a technology and a solution and truly an outcome perspective, it fit really well with me to go into an industry that has established players, but know based on what we do and what we're delivering, there are a lot of customers out there globally that can benefit from what we're doing. So to come in and have the opportunity to lead that global go-to-market was really the reason I'm here.
I can echo to the fact that you're right, the early stage player, mid-size, or let's say mid-stage player, and basically the mature players, right, from this perspective. And I think that it's not about the age, it's not about the size, so I think that it's like where you are actually within your development, production, and scale perspective, right? While we are a pure play AI small cap public company, it is a pure talent. You have like deep talent here, basically to have a lot of semiconductor background, right? From Apple, from Nvidia, from AMD, from Intel, right? I mean, so it's just so exciting. So I think that I'm excited actually when you joined, because I feel that we can now actually have this kind of a comprehensive, a little bit more kind of a thoughtful, and plus also just a little bit maturing kind of a this go-to-market aspect. It's going to be exciting as well. It's going to help us basically just to build the kind of what we call ecosystems, right, within this new era of edge and inference. So Keith, without stealing your thunder, why don't you give us basically a little bit of an origin story? Basically, what makes you kind of interested in joining this movement, this mission with Blaize?
Well, it's really interesting. All three of us have a Cisco pedigree background. I spent 11 years at Cisco as well, and started in the data center space. There's the glass, right, or the mug. Spent most of it in the data center space, data center networking, storage networking. Got into data management, got into converged infrastructures to support heterogeneous workloads. Left and started another software company that we ended up selling to NetApp back in 2017, which provided data center analytics around converged infrastructure, which was a lot of fun. And I probably turned a little bit more white and gray from that experience, but it was still a great experience. And then coming out of that, I got into some AI workloads, and we were building some GenAI platforms for customers on-prem. And so I got about a year and a half, maybe 2 years of experience in GenAI. And then when, Joseph, you moved over here to Blaize and the opportunity came to look at what Blaize was providing, it was interesting since I didn't have that knowledge and experience around video analytics and what we could do with VLMs and what we could do with the silicon that Blaize was building.
I want to touch on something that both of you said, which I think is incredibly unique. And I'm not just saying this because of the present company and the background and experience both of you guys have, but for me, when I'm looking at an organization that I want to join, especially one that is in a lot of ways disrupting status quo of a market, doing something a little bit different, right? I look at three things. Number one, is the market big enough? And is there an opportunity to disrupt because you feel like there's a problem out there that you can solve a little bit different for your customers? And I think for us, that was an absolute yes for me. Number two, does the company have resources to build what they need to do? Because it's a journey that you're going to be on with your customers. But it all comes down to me on the third one, which is the people that you're around the table with. And what's unique about our company, to the point that you made, is this company has a decade and a half, right, of pedigree. You've got some of the very best developers that have come from the likes of the company that we already named, but the Intels and the others. And to have them also stay with the company for as long as they have, and the continuity you have with the team was probably the difference maker for me. And you don't get that, I think, a lot with other types of companies. We're in a unique situation there because on one hand we are disrupting this market, but on the other hand we have a very senior, seasoned team with a lot of continuity doing it.
I would say that if there's a winning combination of any company in the world, everyone you have to be the challenger before your leader, and within the leader circle as well. Basically, sometimes you are being considered as a challenger every single time because there's no such thing as a perpetuality in technology. Things are always be disrupted, and that's actually what creates innovation. Keith, basically, you made some observation about the video analytics. I'd love for you to basically kind of take that. How would that be, relevant, or how would that actually, intersect with the inference, right? I mentioned the new inference era that we have. I mean, we've been talking about AI for quite some time. There's the training era and there's the inference era. I feel the inference is being tested this year. Love for you to basically to give that kind of a thought points on that.
When I talk about technology in general and the technology that I've been involved in for the last 30 years, it's all come down to not the propeller hat spinning, right? Because we can all geek out and enjoy the technology for technology's sake. It comes down to what we can deliver as an outcome to a customer, right? What are we providing to the customer that provides value to their business, solves a business problem, creates better efficiency in their businesses, or allows them to make more money, right? And we're solving a real problem. So I enjoy the technology for technology's sake, but what are we really delivering at the end of the day? And when you're thinking about video analytics, a camera stream, a traditional video stream like what we're doing here right now, being able to extract the text out and create, the outcomes from something like that, or if it's a security camera that you're tracking and trending something at a front door or at a business, and you're looking for weapons or you're looking for license plates, what have you, the outcome is what people are paying for, right? So I may have a business that is telling me regulatory compliance is saying I need a camera system with video analytics or AI analytics. My insurance company may be saying I need that because we've had slips and falls or people aren't wearing their personal protection equipment, or the legal team is saying we've had too many lawsuits, right? And so they're not doing it for technology's sake. They're doing it for a real business outcome. So how do we take the best of what we've built and the ecosystem and the partnership that we've had and provide those outcomes that are the most meaningful for their businesses? And you talked about the industry kind of trending away from training models to really using models, and that's where inference really plays, right? So we need to find those outcomes and then figure out the context of those outcomes. Just because I detected that it happened doesn't mean I understand what was going on during that detection.
Yep.
So by using the latest and greatest VLMs and the partnerships that Blaize has with the industry, we're going to be able to provide customers with not only the analytic outcome, but what was the context? Context is really important when it comes to the next step. What is the next step? If there's a spill on the factory floor, we need to get that cleaned up quickly before somebody slips, falls, has an accident, right? So the next step would be trigger a ticket and a help desk scenario and getting a maintenance person out there to help clean that up, make everything safe again, right? But if somebody's not wearing their PPE or we're not putting the cones out behind the forklift, right, an accident could happen. So what's the next step? Get somebody out there to yell, hey, put your hard hat on, get those cones out behind the truck as you're unloading it. So the context is going to be very important to understand what we're looking for, why we're doing it, and what problem are we really solving. Is it regulatory compliance? Is it insurance? Is it legal?
I'm confident that we have the technology that's going to enable this. But my focus is not about the technology. My focus is everything that Keith talked about on the side of the customer. And when I put myself in the shoes of anybody from an IT perspective that's also trying to figure out how to utilize everything we're talking about to build their business, it's incredibly intimidating. I believe it's incredibly intimidating, and you do have to dumb that down. You have to work with partners and companies that have seen these type of use cases before, that are very specific on what they're going to deliver to you. This is how it's going to benefit your business. Once you talk about how it's going to, you mentioned, make money or save money, everything else goes from there. And I think what's also important to call out here is you've got to work with companies that are really good at partnering. Really, because more times than not, one company is not going to deliver everything on your behalf. But what you don't want to be as a business leader or an IT leader is have to worry about that. You want to work with somebody from a partnership perspective that's going to bring the entire solution to the table and make sure that it just works and delivers what it needs to. And so, you mentioned it, Keith, a little bit with our ecosystem of partners. Partners will continue to be incredibly important to everything that we do. And we've got to make sure that we continue to be easy to partner with. So it's completely seamless to the end user. And I think that's what's really important. And that's how you sort of simplify all this, because when it really comes down to it, how are you improving their business? We play in the area of smart retail. We talk a little bit about what we're doing with traffic. You mentioned a few use cases, there, Keith, when you were talking. All types of different security use cases. You've got to have a team that understands this, because they can make that become really practical for your client to understand as well. So that's how I'll approach it as I get into the business. Keep it about the outcome for the client and make sure that it's clearly articulated on what their business is going to achieve, really outside of the tech. The tech will enable it, but really focus on the outcome.
There were two, at least, news. There were a lot of news basically happening within the last weeks, the last month or so. So Keith, I want you to take this kind of this topic on the Grok and NVIDIA, the non-exclusive licensing that happened.
You think about traditional NVIDIA architectures, right, in the data center, and what they've been selling to in the hyperscaler market is mostly been for training. And the architectures are technologically superior and technologically impressive. but also very expensive, right? Very few customers in the enterprise could ever afford an architecture like what NVIDIA has been proposing, but it's mostly been because of training large language models and video models. And they need tens of thousands of nodes at $10,000 to $30,000 a piece to train these models over months of time, right? If you look at some of the biggest models out there right now, they're 30,000 GPUs minimum at 3 months of training. And I think some of them have actually doubled the size of the cluster for 2 to 3 months worth of training at the cost of millions of dollars of GPU time. And not to mention data center power, cooling, rack density, et cetera, right?
Absolutely.
So you think of the traditional enterprise customer, it's not the model training that they're interested in, it's the outcome again. Well, where does the outcome come from? From inference, right? So if a lot of your transactions at the consumer level are happening in the inference side of the business, they're not going to pay per transaction what the training model cost would have been, right? They can't afford that. Again, what was the customer really looking for at the end of the day? And you're trying to drive that cost down while they continue to capitalize on the market share that they've got in the training space with the really incredible, technologically capable platforms that they've been building.
So Keith, let me ask you, if you take everything that you just stated and you remove Grok, but the talk track stays the same, focus on inference, focus on computing at the edge, focusing on finding ways to make it more cost efficient for your customer, would you feel comfortable moving Grok out and putting Blaize there and being able to keep the same talk track?
I would. And the reason I say that, 6 months here now, you look at the heritage or legacy of Blaize in the edge space, right? Being able to provide real-time outcomes of those critical video analytic events, and then moving up market into the data center, either on campus or in the cloud data center, where you're going to be able to have greater scale of density, of the analytic capability, of storage, being able to track and trend those events over time, and be able to take advantage of the hybrid architecture that we've been talking about for about the last 6 months, right? We kind of talked about hybrid AI about 6 months ago. And the idea there was to benefit not just from the edge architecture that Blaize has put together, but partnerships that bring the best of edge and data center together and being able to share that workload across different silicon. And it might be our silicon, it may be partnerships with companies like NVIDIA or ... future companies.
Nokia announced a partnership with NVIDIA. And there's an opportunity that they're going to go and do some interesting things together. Well, they also just announced an opportunity with us. Why? Because of everything that we just talked about. They see the opportunity to go to market together and be able to go after the use cases where we know we can deliver in a much more effective, in a much more cost-effective manner. And we already have customers that are being attracted to that. Nokia saw the value in what we could do together. They saw how we really lean in and what we deliver in this space of edge computing. And we have an opportunity now to go to market together to bring joint customers to the table to take advantage of the solution that we can both deliver.
So, Joseph, I got a question for you.
Absolutely.
So we spent our initial few years in edge. Mm-hmm. We started talking about hybrid over the last 6 months. We're now talking about this thing called practical AI. Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell us what practical AI is?
The relationship or interconnectivity between the data center, far edge colo, any interchangeable type of nodes and hubs basically you have in between are very important. So with that said, is that practical AI is really about taking all those things and actually making the practical kind of approach. The first one is really to realize that things are heterogeneous. Things are hybrid. And hybrid, basically, you have 2 or 3 different dimensions of it. There's a hybrid sense, basically, that you have edge deployment, right, or far edge, and then you have the data center deployment, right? There's certain devices and systems and technology that you have to deploy to right fit that particular landscape or particular environment, right, to fit basically the power constraint or the cost constraint. The next one is really having that level of programmability or flexibility, and in this case, basically about efficiency. In efficiency, you can actually it goes beyond just cost saving, right? Efficiency goes also in the way that you adapt to the environment, the way that you deploy things, the way that you program things, the way that you develop, train, and at the end of the day, to produce things, right? To infer. All those things, has to have that, the mindset has to be efficient, right? So that goes kind of inherently within your architecture, within your deployment paradigm, and within all the integration that you're doing. And last but not least is the stuff that you and I, all of us, have been talking about, which is focus on problem solving. So technology is important, but actually it's more important for you to actually solve the problem more than you actually focusing on re-engineering something that's already there. That's why we take the approach of hybrid, at first for practical AI, because we need to complement the system that's already there and provide basically the value add through either the middleware, the connectivity, right, or the compiler access of it, the orchestration side of it, routing aspect of it, so that we can actually provide that real solution to solve the problem. There's someone that said to me just a couple of days ago, they said that fragmentation is actually our friend, right? And the fragmentation also means that everyone, when you ask them about one thing about what AI and how AI benefit is, we still see kind of a differing answers. Yeah. So the fragmentations are our friend basically by saying, the way that I look at it is that why Nokia or why NVIDIA is interested in Grok and why Nokia is interested in us, or maybe interested in basically smaller players, because they themselves are disconnected with what's really happening at the edge. They're really disconnected with the end user, right? And we're getting kind of too caught up in the technology.
Think about what's happening with NVIDIA right now. They were a consumer electronics company, right? They were selling GPUs to desktop gamers, right? That was their market. And all of a sudden, the crypto market took off.
Yeah.
And because they're floating point calculations, they run extremely well in GPUs, all of a sudden their typical customer couldn't buy because of all the crypto mining happening, industrial crypto mining that was buying all of the GPUs. So the traditional gamer who they had been building for decades couldn't even buy the latest and greatest GPU anymore. And if they were trying to crypto mine on a single chip or two chips or whatever. But then go upstream even further now with what they're doing from a training perspective. So I would agree with you that they've gone so far up market that they have to find a way to come back down market, and that down market is where all the consumers are. That's where Inference lives.
Yeah, look, so I think for us, fragmentation is our friend, as long as we are very clear on the role and why it's our friend, right? And the role that we're going to play. And if you even take a look at the economical problem, Keith, that you just talked about, right? And you take a look at it from a cloud service provider perspective, the economics right now are horrendous. The margin pressures are atrocious. It is very difficult to figure out how are you actually going to be able to monetize all of the investment that you made, right, from an infrastructure perspective. And so when you take a look at, in my opinion, why fragmentation is our friend, is because that's a very specific area that we focus on where we can help a customer through that journey, right? We understand how we can go and work with cloud service providers to be more economical on how they are driving services on top of their infrastructure, the role that our platform can play with that, right? But I think you've got to be very clear on the end game and the economics of this, because when it comes down to it, everything that we say about fragmentation and what we talked about is massive cost and uncertain revenue for clients. And if you can cut through that and figure out what is Blaize's role going to be in helping solve that problem, then absolutely fragmentation is our friend. If you're not clear on that, then you're going to be one of the folks that are causing that fragmentation, right? And I think that's the mission that we're on, to make sure that we are not causing more fragmentation, but we're getting to the answer of how you're going to make money or save money with the investments that you've made.
Excellent. Folks, with that, I thank you again, Keith, Stephen, for your insights, your really thought and perspective here, sharing this with our audience. I appreciate basically for the folks watching us. If you have any thoughts, comments, and any interest or any kind of wish list on what topic that you want us to cover, right? Please put us in the in the comment, follow and subscribe to us so that we can actually give you the best insights right from real world folks that actually are providing or in this ecosystems. So again, thank you again. This is Joseph Sulistyo. I'll see you in the next episode.